This is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got a Glock 21 Gen 4 chambered in 45 ACP. A lot of people were asking us to get a hold of one of these, do a review on it, and then do some comparisons on it. So we've got a hold of one. This one is a Gen 4, as I mentioned, and we're going to go through ahead, do a review on it, and then watch for some upcoming comparisons between this one and several other guns in its same category. So let's start out with picking it up and showing that it's unloaded. This particular gun was the largest Glock 45 ACP until they released the 41 MOS. It is a full-size gun. This would be a full-size service pistol type gun, and it is based on their larger frame and larger slide. It basically shares a frame and slide with combination with the 10 millimeters. It comes from the factory with a 13-round magazine, the standard Glock magazines, and they do fit slightly flush. They're mostly flush, stick down a little bit, but not enough to really get in the way or overall affect the size of it. In keeping with all Glocks, it has no external safeties such as manual safeties. All of the safeties are internal, starting with this little thing on the trigger, which prevents the trigger from moving if the gun is dropped, prevents inertia or spring harmonics from moving the trigger. And all of the other safeties automatically disengage as you pull the trigger. So basically with a Glock, if you don't want it to fire, keep your finger off the trigger. If you want it to fire, pull the trigger. All the safeties will automatically disengage. It'll fire. As soon as you release the trigger, all the safeties are back in play. The sights on this gun are the standard U-Dot Glock sights. They're very easy to see, very bright, very clear, and they are replaceable. The rear sight is dovetailed. And the front sight appears pinned, but there's actually a screw going through it that's accessible from underneath the slide. So with it disassembled, you can unscrew it and pop that off. You can't adjust the front sight, but you can replace it. And the rear sight, of course, you can easily adjust or replace. Being that this is a Gen 4, it does have the replaceable back straps. Right now you'll see it with no back strap at all on it, and then you can add back straps to increase the size of the frame. And it does have the equivalent of their RTF rough texture finish grip serrations. Makes it really easy to get a hold of without biting into your skin at all. And it does have finger grooves which have serrations in them, so that when you get a hold of this gun, it fits comfortable in your hand. You have a really good grip on it. It is a slightly thicker grip than the others because of the 45 ACP, and of course the Glock is a double stack. It does have one other feature. It does have a Picatinny rail with a single slot. And most of the manufacturers of the various aftermarket accessories are well aware of this single slot on the Glocks, and they've got mechanisms to adjust their device forward and backward on the rail. So the fact that there's only one slot really doesn't cause a problem with most lights, lasers, and other devices you might want to add to it. Before I go too much further, I did mention that this is full size, in the service gun territory. Let me talk about the size of it. It's 8.2 inches front to rear, actually 8.22 front to rear. It's 5.47 inches tall, and it's 1.27 inches thick. So it's a little thicker than the 9 millimeters in the 40s, which of course would be expected with this being the larger frame and slide size. And it weighs 29.84 ounces unloaded. So it's not a light gun, but for a 45, a full-size 45, that's not exceptionally heavy. Of course, once you fill it up with 13 big old fat 45s, it comes in around 38.48 ounces. So you're adding another just under 10 ounces of ammo when you load this thing all the way up. So let me go ahead and disassemble it and show you the internals on it. So pull the magazine out. Of course it is unloaded. Pull the trigger. Just wrap my hand around it, pull the slide just a hair back. All I'm basically doing is putting my hand around it and just closing. I'm not really doing much more than taking the tension off this front spring. Slides right apart. And you've got the standard Gen 4 dual recoil spring, which of course is captive. The 4.6 inch barrel, and like all the Glocks, it does have polygonal rifling. Slightly increases the pressure you're going to get and a little bit more muzzle velocity, but of course you can't really run bare lead in this for any length of time without it potentially plugging up and being unsafe. It does have it's not a highly polished feed ramp, but it is a very smooth, well-machined feed ramp. And this gun, like typical for Glocks, has just been flawless from day one. It eats everything from good quality ammo all the way down to the Perfecta without any kind of a problem at all. And inside the slide, basically if you've seen one Glock slide, you've pretty much seen them all. This one here, here's the drop safety mechanism, one of the internal safeties that's disengaged by the trigger as you pull it. And of course you've got the striker back here and the loading ramp. Typical of all the Glocks, there's nothing in here for aesthetics. There's nothing in here that isn't solely for the whole purpose of just making the thing work, which this one actually works quite well. You've got the rear serrations, and typical of the Glocks, there are no front serrations. When you look at the slide, you've got the trigger group back here. This protrusion is what operates that little safety plunger for the drop safety. The ejector. You've got forward rails are up here. This is the locking block. Forward rails are up here, and they're steel inserts, along with the rear rails being steel inserts. And again, there's not really a whole lot of complexity in here. They're overall very simple guns with a couple of pins here and a pin back here. You can pull the entire operating mechanism out except for the rails, which are fused into the frame. But you pull the trigger group out, you can pull the locking block out to polish it, which I've done to this. Replace the connector with the minus connector, which we've got another video talking about that. But overall, it's easy to work on a Glock with just a single tool. There's a punch called a Glock Disassembly tool you can use, or any punch, like an arm or a set. It's actually quite easy to work on these. So let me show you how to put it back together again. Drop the barrel in. Just drops into place. The recoil spring pops in, and there's a little half moon shape here on the front of the barrel that it sits in. So once you drop it in place, it pretty much holds on its own. You might give it a little push to make sure it's centered. Line it up on the frame. So I'm just lining it up with the slides. Now sometimes you may have to wiggle it a little bit to get past the hook for the disconnect for the safety. The plunger sometimes hangs up a little bit. Cycle it, and you're back in business. Now as far as the trigger goes, all the Glocks have a very similar trigger. Once you pick up the little split trigger, that's almost not noticeable. It just kind of disappears into the trigger, and it really doesn't bite into your finger. You've got a minimal amount of take-up. Let's do that right. You've got a little bit of take-up. Now because I've got the minus connector in this, the wall's a little longer than with the standard connector, so there's a little bit of what you might consider creep, but it actually makes it much smoother. And then you've got the very sharp break. Typical very short Glock reset. You're right on the wall. There's no bounce at the end of the reset. And then the break again. With the minus connector that's in this, it's a very smooth pull all the way through with slightly less defined wall, but a lot easier to get through it without potentially twisting the gun as you pull. So overall, if you're looking for a service size weapon, or you're looking for something in a 45, this one here would be very similar to some other guns you're probably familiar with. You can use it this range. This is a good home defense weapon, and you can even carry it. You're going to find a lot of people carry a full-size 1911. This one happens to be unloaded. This is a Springfield lightweight operator. And what you'll find is if you can carry a full-size 1911, you can definitely carry the Glock. Now I've got them lined up here, beaver tail to beaver tail, and you'll see that the 1911 is actually significantly longer if I do that. Now if I bring them up slide to slide, they come almost to the same length. So overall, from a footprint standpoint, if you see the height of it, from a footprint standpoint, it's roughly the size of a full-size 1911. Now it's a little thicker than a 1911 slide. If you measure this rounded slide, it's right around an inch thick, whereas the Glock's 1.27. But once you add on the grips or any of the controls on the 1911, it actually becomes thinner than a 1911 at its widest point. And it's quite a bit lighter than the 1911 because even an alloy frame 1911 is going to be heavier than a polymer frame. So if you're thinking that I couldn't carry something like this, if you're carrying a 1911 or ever have carried a 1911, you can carry this. It's obviously not a pocket gun, but inside the waistband or outside the waistband it's actually quite easy. And of course this has 13 rounds, and your typical 1911 is 7 or 8 rounds. It varies up and down depending on the 1911 which mags you use in it, but even with the extended magazines that don't protrude, maximum you're going to get to about 8 before you start sticking out of the grip and vastly expanding the grip. Now another gun in the polymer world that you might look at as something like an XDM 4.5 that would be equivalent. Now this one happens to be the threaded barrel variant, but the non-threaded barrel variant, the barrel would protrude only a fraction out of the end of the slide. Just like the Glock does, it sticks out just a little bit. So from a comparison standpoint, just know that the barrel on a non-threaded version would end right about there. And if we put these two up side by side, going beaver tail to beaver tail, they're roughly equivalent. The Glock's just a hair longer. Let me put this on the other side so that you can get a good look at it. The Glock's just a hair longer, but really not much. It's fractions of an inch. And both of these hold 13 rounds with the flush magazines. And if I bring this back around to the other side, you'll see that the Springfield's actually a taller gun. Now one thing that's affecting it is you've got these suppressor height sights. They're probably adding maybe 1/8 of an inch or so to the overall height of the gun when it stands up on its back. And by the way, when I'm quoting the 13 rounds, it's actually 13 plus 1. Both of these factory magazines hold 13 rounds in the magazine. And then of course you can have one in the pipe. So when you're looking at the polymer guns, the Glock's a little bit smaller than the XDM, but not significantly enough that it'd probably make a huge difference in your choice. But the gun is competitive from a size and weight perspective with others in that territory. So if you've been carrying a 1911 and you're wanting to upgrade a little bit more capacity, a little bit lighter, enter the polymer realm, the Glock's a good choice for you. If you're looking for something to put in the nightstand for something that goes bump in the night, this is definitely a good choice for you. Very easy to grip, very easy to control. And if you're looking for something to have fun with at the range and you happen to be fond of 45, the bigger gun with the bigger grip actually makes the 45 a very controllable round and very comfortable to shoot. So whichever way you look at it, you've got a really good choice if 45 is what you like. So if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and have a great day. Thank you.